So Buddhism may not frame it that way because they may say that, oh, this only happens to high level bodhisattvas and like only they can manifest this kind of transformative ability. But I wouldn't be surprised at
Hmm.
all if like when you achieve very, very deep enlightenment, it's like this loop just gets finished or this loop gets closed and it's like, oh,
Hmm.
yeah,
Am I
The Sambhogakaya is just one of your higher Namarupa, higher mind bodies.
am I focus 12? They had me sit on a cloud to access them. But it's a place that I used to go to when I was younger. So it was kind of like my ventral vagal happy place that I would go to meditate or connect. And so it would be like this open field, but there would be these cloud steps up onto this cloud platform surrounded by blue orbs. So
What? So that's wild because a lot of my higher self experiences, like where it's the formless type, happened within clouds. Like I was
hmm,
flying through some clouds and then vanished into this light that existed in some kind of like cloud formless light dimension. So
hmm,
that's pretty interesting. I've heard other people describe the same thing too, that
hmm,
when they contact Jaime actually, who was in this class last week, when he contacted his higher self, he said it was an orb in a sky and there were
hmm,
clouds. It's pretty strange. Another person in
hmm,
the chat too said something about today about how like when she encountered higher self, she appeared as an orb and there were a bunch
hmm,
of there were a bunch of blue orbs everywhere and she just knew that they were all like souls or higher selves.
hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. And finally I met a guy back when I was 18 on DMT who had that experience. He said he like he took a hit of DMT or something and then he like, just appeared in this like space and there were just these blue orbs and these non-physical beings were like, "You made it. Welcome back." And he said in that experience he thought it was ridiculous that he ever thought he was anything other than that blue orb. It's pretty strange. So I guess the Buddhism thing here is like even though I'm using the word self for higher self or soul for higher soul, the Buddhist teaching would be to not regard any experience as the definite I.
That's definitive. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. As definitive or as the final or as the true I. Because really the case is like you can always get further and further iterations or further and further layers. I was talking about this in the chat that, for example, Paramahansa Yogananda and Nisargadatta Maharaj. Paramahansa Yogananda said, he described his experience of cosmic consciousness like being this cosmic mind and all these nebulas and solar systems and spatial things arising and appearing. And Nisargadatta described a similar experience as being a nothingness consciousness. And when he would emerge from the nothingness consciousness, the universe would appear, all the solar systems and galaxies and all this, galaxies. And then when he when his consciousness would revert back into this nothingness consciousness, which was unaware of itself. He specifically defined it as that, like this nothingness consciousness, Brahman, para Brahman, it does not know itself. And
Hmm,
when it emerges from that state, it sees all the universes.
hmm,
So he took this nothingness state, this unawareness that does not know itself, as the final state, the true self. Very,
hmm,
very definitively, he said that. I am para Brahman. I existed prior to consciousness. None of this is real. This is all illusion. That is my true state.
hmm,
Uh, Buddhism would not recommend that. I'll just
hmm.
say that, you know, because the case is there could always be something beyond that, right? You don't know. So why would you say that it's your absolute definitive true self? Probably because it's so far removed from this reality and it's such an exalted state that you know you feel inclined to make that declaration after the fact. But the thing too is when you're in these states, you can't make those declarations, right?
Mhm.
Like I
So it
just
must
had
be
it.
after.
It must be after. I just had an infinite space samadhi experience like 3 weeks ago. I'm telling you, it's not possible to make any declarations when you're in that. No way. You can't even. There's not even thought. So why would you
Yeah, it
have
sounds
this?
like he had cessation.
Yeah. Well, he no, he described it as specifically an awareness that is unaware of itself. So not a cessation.
But how would
But
he be aware of, well, never mind. That's too, there's no way to know. But
well, so like when I had the infinite samadhi or like sorry, infinite space samadhi, when I was in that state, I also did not know that I existed here, right? I did not
Mhm.
have the capacity for self-recognition in that formless state. It was absent. So I can see what he means or what you would mean by that level of consciousness does not know itself. It's the capacity to have self-recognition is not available in those levels.
Mm. There's an awakeness, but not a recognition.
Yeah, exactly. Like you had an experience of it.
Wow.
Consciousness was there,
Hmm.
You you remember it after the
Otherwise, how would
fact.
you even remember? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So consciousness was present, but it doesn't have this self-referential thing going on, or at least
Hmm.
the capacity for that. So then after you come out of it, that's when you make the declaration, I am God, I'm the universe,
Yeah.
I'm everything that was and that will ever be, all this stuff. So, but that's just reality from that plane of consciousnesses. It's like it's I can see how you would make that conclusion after the fact, right?
Hmm.
But when you're in that state, no conclusions are necessary. I mean, they don't, none of these things arise.
Hmm.
So, yeah, as far as Buddhism is concerned, especially, just from my perspective, I've experienced things like that or entered states like that, but I don't see them as final at all. Yeah. There
Hmm.
could always be something, right? So, but I think that because
So
he
just his truer self.
yeah, exactly, exactly. It's more fun. It's certainly more fundamental. It's certainly peaceful. There's certainly no suffering, right? Like in that nothingness samadhi where I appeared as space and all these stars, like do you think I suffered? I didn't suffer. What the heck is suffering?
Huh.
You don't even have a body. You're space and stars. Like where is there suffering? So in Buddhism, you only suffer when apparently your consciousness, your life, quote unquote, ends in that state and you reappear in a human state, which is exactly what happened in Nisargadatta Maharaj. He descended, he left this nothingness state and appeared as a human. That's exactly what Buddhism talks about. So,
Hmm.
so this thing with like cycling between earth reality, physical mind body realities and the formless realms, that is definitely talked about in Buddhism. It's actually not in Robert Monroe's teachings, but it is in
Hmm.
Buddhism for sure. One of the reasons Buddhism is like they're kind of like hesitant about teaching, or like you always hear Buddhist teachers say like, "Oh, be careful about the formless attainments." Because the
Hmm.
idea is that if you enter or you begin to exist in one of the formless realms, you'll exist there for so long, like so many world cycles, because time there is
Hmm.
completely different, right? Like from that point of view, you can actually see the arising and passing of a world. Like that's how different time is in those states.
Yeah, all of them, the hell realms, everything
Yeah,
is like
exactly. You just see
it's
it's
like
like
a billion years or something,
just
like
like
or
like a
crazy
flicker.
amount of years.
Yeah. So the idea is that, you're so far out there that like by the time you come back to the human realm, you don't know if there'll be a Buddha or if there'll be any enlightened beings around. This is just like, conjecture is what Buddhists say. But yeah.
Hmm.
So
So
the
it's a
the
detour for a Buddhist. Too long. It's like a long detour.
yeah. Yeah, if you look at like Robert Monroe stuff from the point of Buddhism, it's likely the case that even from like Robert Monroe, he goes beyond Focus 49, which is like basically samsara, or what I consider samsara to be, this whole, formless realms and uh earth-based or earth similar reality systems. And it's just like this cycle. So
Mhm,
Bob, in the final book, he exits this whole thing and he appears in a reality where it seems to be the case that this whole samsara thing that we're in is actually like a simulation. Like it
mhm,
appears it appears in a device that he observes. And when he's there, he sees these beings that are like super beings. Like they're comprised of multiple higher self clusters. So like one of
mhm,
them was made of, like 10,000 incarnates. And
mhm,
he's all just this one gigantic being. And the being looks at him and says, "Hey, like you're not all together. Like all of your incarnates are still in the game." And then
mhm,
Bob's like, "Oh, okay. So I guess I have to go back." You know? So
hmm,
I think as far as Buddhism is concerned, that may still be, they would probably still consider that samsara. I don't know.
hmm,
Probably they would. But it is definitely an interesting thing to consider that our reality may be a closed circuit, and there could be something completely outside of it that doesn't even operate by the same rules or principles and is completely inconceivable to how we experience reality in this particular system.
hmm,
Yeah. Because one of the things that I noticed about the deity consciousness is that it's formatted completely differently than human consciousness configuration. When I had consciousness transferred into a deity, its mind was like a super information highway of light. And in its mind, there were these, like, how we have like one thought, and then another thought, and then another thought, and another thought, but it's sequential.
mhm,
Imagine like every thought you've ever had appearing as a window in this vast panoramic whirlwind tornado, and that all of those windows were other dimensions, other places in space and time,
hmm,
and that you were somehow in all of them, somehow. Like you were everywhere, but you were nowhere. Like nowhere in the sense that mind's not discernible, everywhere in the sense that you were appearing in like countless realities simultaneously. Like it just doesn't make any sense.
hmm,
So completely different from how we close our eyes and we have this black thing, this black screen, and these wispy thoughts. Totally different. Totally
hmm,
different. Yeah. Like I can see how that being could appear in multiple reality systems. And of course, from the Mahayana view, a 10th level bodhisattva is beyond samsara and is able to do
hmm,
things that beings in samsara are not capable of doing. So it's possible that, we're looking at the same or similar things, but because of the frameworks or knowledge bases that we're observing or analyzing them from, we have these discrepancies. It's possible that the super being that Bob Monroe met outside of Focus 49 is a Sambhogakaya manifestation or Sambhogakaya body.
hmm,
Yeah.
hmm,
At least the highest one, right? Not at the higher self plane that is like still in the cycle. Yeah.
hmm.
Well, everyone, we've gone on for 2 hours. Uh any other question? Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna stop the recording.